All right, thank you for tuning in to this tutorial today on the two types of nulls in Tableau. All right, perfect. Okay. All right, so the first one we're going to look at here, let me get rid of this, sorry, is null record does exist, right? So I'm looking at the NFL offensive player stat data set that I use in another video. So you can see all the players here listed. So I'm going to add a measure on here and see what happens, right? Now, as you notice, for some of these players, for the yards per attempt for like rushing, it's not showing anything, right? So that player does exist in the data set, but it's null for the yards per attempt. So I'm going to add Z in, and you're going to see what's going to happen, right? Okay, so I add Z in, right? For AJ here, right? He gets 0. Now, what that means is, again, he does have a record for a player, but he doesn't have any value for the YA. So once I did the Z and it converted it to a 0. So now I can manipulate that data and work with it as 0 rather than just a null, right? Now where it gets tricky is as you start to add more dimensions, and I would say a typical dimension where this is going to happen is you start adding a time dimension, right? So let's say I started adding a year, which I'm about to do. Now we're looking to see, do I get a null value for yards per attempt across different years? And where that gets hairy or starts to get confusing is that because I'm not filtering by player, Tableau is naturally going to do what I'm about to show you right now. So let me get rid of this. Now this is where it gets confusing, right? Okay. I should have actually did something else, but it's fine. Okay. So what Tableau does is it's going to show me all the years of the data set, regardless of this player actually played in it. So watch this. I'm going to go ahead and keep only. Now we see that AJ only played in 1999, which is what I would expect, because when I did the Z and it actually worked and returned 0 rather than just not doing anything, right? That tells me that he actually did play. These other ones where it didn't, let me go back. These other ones where it didn't work because he didn't play. He does, or not that he didn't play. He does not have a record for that year in the database. And that causes issues because it's like, okay, well, what do I do with this when I'm trying to like do some type of calculus in Tableau for it? So one of the things that Jim talked about, which I thought was great, was doing scaffolding, which is basically taking this entire data set and effectively making a database scenario where you're adding in, let's just call it a player table, right? It's just a player table that just has all the different attributes that a player could have. So like, rather than me just saying like AJ's name, I say AJ 1999 through all these years. And what I would do is I'd effectively do a left join back to the data set. So then this way, on these blanks, on these null ones where he didn't play, not nulls, on the years that he didn't play, rather than me getting just this emptiness, I would actually go to get a null value so I can convert it to a 0, which technically can be confusing, right? Because I may see that as he played, he just didn't do anything, which is actually not accurate. And in some ways, this is actually the best way to represent it because he did not play. And I should not be showing anything, right? But that's the way that Jim did this. So I'm going to show you a way that I've handled it in the past where I wanted to be able to get maybe an average or a sum, or like an average or something like that, get some type of calculus for a specific like dimension or player or whatever it may be, where naturally I couldn't do it without having to do some type of scaffolding. But let's say I don't have the ability to do some type of join, or the data is changing so much that it becomes difficult to do. So let me show you null record does exist, all right? So let me go ahead and remove. So I'm going to show you with all the customers how it looks, all right? Okay, so So let me show you this Aaron Bergman here. Okay, so let's keep only. Or sorry, let's. Is that what I want to do? Let me keep only here. Okay, cool. Okay, so we have Aaron Hawkins, right? And we have this data set, right? And as you can see, so let me pull this calculation here, right? Dynamic grand total. So if I was to take, let me actually show you. Let me pull in profit first. So you guys got to see how this is working. Okay, so bringing in profit, you can see that, and this is from the sample store data set. Aaron Hawkins has 145 profit for East and then 43 for 188, right? So each year we're summing up and we're getting a grand total. Now, one thing that we could do, so let's say, hey, I'm like, I want to see this, so I want to add Z in. I want to see the zeros for like previous. It doesn't do that because there is no record of Aaron Hawkins South 2014, 2015, or East 2015, right? So let's say hypothetically, I get a task where, okay, hey Cole, I want you to show me, rather than the grand total here, I want you to show me, rather than just show me the grand total, I want to see what the average is, right? For this particular person. But I want to see their individual, I want to see their profit for each year based on region. So give me what the sum was for customer region a year, but then also show me the average for that, customer region year. And in situations like in the South, where you technically did not work in 2014 or didn't produce anything, I still want you to divide that up. So rather than it being just, 2 divided by, like 188 for the average, I want you to do 3 because he could have he has worked in 3 regions. So I'm assuming that he just didn't do anything in this region rather than he worked there. I'm assuming he didn't do anything, right? So what we did was we created this calculation called dynamic grand total, which let me do this. Okay, and then we're gonna do table down. Okay, so here we get 62.8, which is basically breaking up those two it's this number here, which is 188.3 divided by 3. And if you can quickly check the math on that. So let's just make sure. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and the way this works is this, which is a good way to go through this. So there's this calculation here called size, which I like to use. It's very powerful. Basically, what it says is return the number of rows in the partition. So this here was one partition, and as you can tell, because it's breaking down into multiple dimensions, right? So 1, 2, 3 is 3. So it has this else statement, which means it's basically saying Z in lookup, which is basically doing lookup is doing a table calculation. I'm saying sum of profit, and lookup has 2 arguments, which is the expression, which is sum of profit. You have to use aggregation there, and the offset, which is 0, which basically means just return that current row. And if it's null, then return 0. So that's why we get these zeros that filled in, right? And this works because we're using lookup. If I just use ZN without the lookup, it's not going to work. But it does work when I'm using a table calculation. So what I can do is I'm saying, okay, take the total here and divide it by 3. No, sorry, I'm saying this is just, so there's 3 in this partition. So this size does not get activated. It goes to the else statement, and then returns me each profit. Now, the beauty of this is, like I said earlier, I'm getting tasked with, okay, I don't want just the sum of it. I want to see what the average is, but include all the regions that Aaron's ever worked in. Well, what I can do is I can use lookup functions, which the lookup function is which is a table calculation, but I can wrap that inside of an LOD calculation to figure out how to do the math. And really the kind of the bulk of this really here is in the denominator, where I take the I count the regions that customers ever been in, and then the numerator I just take their profit for the customer in the order date, and that effectively it just basically gives me the average. And it's great because I wouldn't be able to do this unless I'm able to actually count how many regions that customer has. Now, this does work pretty well. Now, the caveat you have to think about, the caveat to this you have to think about where this doesn't work is, what if you get into a situation where, okay, you're like, okay, boss, your boss is like, okay, this is great. I love this. This works so well. Well, what if I want to add in multiple people, right? And I'm going to show you this where it breaks down. So here, right? So if you look at 2015, you're getting 45.5, which is really 3 divided by 136.6. And the reason it's doing that is because Aaron, in this case, doesn't have any record in the data set for 2015. So even though the LOD does count 2, because it's doing it here, everywhere else, like regardless of the order date, because we're using a table calculation, that table calculation really is ignoring this and really starting here because he doesn't have data at all. You have to keep in mind that because we're adding this year date, it's going to show regardless if that person's ever had data. And that's where the confusion can come in. Because if you look at this one here, this is working. I'm pretty sure this is working. So 154 divided by 5, yeah, that makes sense. But again, that's because we have at least one record, one piece of data for that year. So this calculation will work because of the table calculation will work. But you have to have at least one. If you don't have at least one, then it will not work. So again, this does work on certain use cases. Again, I try to typically keep it down to like something where I'm doing like a filter action or something like that. And again, you notice here, like the 2015 goes away, but the calculation still works. So typically I'll do with something like a filter action or something where I'm hovering, where I can control how many records I'm showing so I don't run into that issue. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's really just those two cases. Like I said, the blog post did a really good job of showing scaffolding. If you can do that, that's great. I definitely recommend doing that on the database side, where you try to get as much information as you can about a different customer or whatever. So that way, when you do join, you don't run into issues like this. Because when we do run into them, it's very difficult to fill in the zeros and be able to do calculations. Most situations you can add in the zeros. Where it gets difficult is, okay, I want to see a grand total. You're like, okay, well, or not necessarily a grand total, but like, how do I get this average? Because you're not gonna be able to get this. You're not gonna be able to get that. You're gonna be able to get it. You're only gonna be able to get an average of records that exist. You can't get an average of records that don't exist. Where again, like I said earlier, if I go back to, let's go back here. Like here, I won't be able to get the average. Sorry, let me do both of them. That's just fine. Sorry. Yeah, like in most situations, you wouldn't be able to get an average of this because that never actually happened. You'd only get 136, which is true. But what if Aaron did work in the East and the South, but just didn't produce anything? I would want to show that. In a database, the main number was null, and they should never done that. So, yeah, that's basically going over to 2 different types of nulls. If you have any questions or any comments or want to provide any feedback, please drop them down in the comment section. And yeah, it was a great video. I really appreciate all your guys' support. Just like I said, if you have any suggestions or anything that you want me to do in the video, please comment in the comment as well. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.